Thanks, Adam. Just last month, the U.S. deployed radar, increased the frequency of U.S. fighter patrols, and deployed Bradley fighting vehicles to augment U.S. forces in eastern Syria. That means more involvement in that country, in addition to thousands of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Senator Shaheen, the U.S. has now had fighting forces in these three countries in one way or another for about 20 years. At this point, are you resigned to have a permanent presence there?
Well, I disagreed with both President Obama and President Trump on their handling of Syria. I think we should not have withdrawn the troops from northeast Syria that the President Trump decided to do, because now he's put troops back into Syria. And we would have been better off. It would have cost less money for us to maintain those troops who were there, who were providing some stability in northeast Syria, and also providing some balance to what Russia was doing, what Iran has been doing, and what Assad is doing in Syria. So I think what we need to do is work with the international community to go back at both Iran and Russia for the influence that they are doing in the Middle East. And what our policy is really not clear at this point, because the president has flip-flopped on what we're going to be doing there.
Thank you. And Mr. Messner, you've been critical of the number of troops in that region, but considering the difficult nature of the war on terror, would withdrawing at this point be a retreat and dangerous to our national security?
Well, first of all, I think President Trump ought to be commended for bringing peace to the Middle East. I think, secondly, Senator Shaheen has been in the Senate for 12 years during this war. And when President Trump repositioned those soldiers on the Syrian border with Turkey, she made a comment to Andrea Mitchell that, we can keep them there at a minor cost. Senator Shaheen said that losing only a few soldiers getting killed is okay.
You're criticizing me for.
So, let me tell you, I take that personally, and because I have two sons that are serving, one at West Point, one who just graduated from West Point, and we need to take care of our fighting soldiers. And moms and dads out there, you don't want a U.S. senator who thinks losing a few soldiers is okay to keep people somewhere.
Senator, 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, that is absolutely wrong. I would never say that losing soldiers was okay. In fact, when it became clear that Russia was putting bounties on American troops in Afghanistan, I spoke out. I called on the president to say something to Vladimir Putin. My opponent did nothing on that. He didn't call out the president. He didn't say, talk to Vladimir Putin. That is unacceptable. He is just wrong. I would never say that losing our troops was acceptable, and he knows it.
15 seconds to respond, Mr. Messner.
Senator Shaheen, if you look at that tape and you see that you said we've only lost a few soldiers, will you withdraw from the race?
What I said was the cost of keeping troops there in terms of dollars, it was about $200 million, was something that was worth the expense.
You're lying. You're lying.
To you, Mr. Messner.
You said we've only lost a few soldiers. Thank goodness. That's what you said.
Mr. Messner.
If that's what the tape says, will you withdraw?
Mr. Messner, a question.
I'm not going to.
Go ahead, Senator, if you'd like to.
You can.
Okay. Mr. Messner is disengaging
my opponent is just not accurate. And that's the problem. He doesn't know me, he doesn't know my record, and he doesn't know New Hampshire.
Mr. Messner, is disengaging from Syria in some way disrespectful or dishonoring the memory of James Foley?
No, I don't think so. I think we need to move forward in a way that protects our allies in the Middle East. Israel is so important. They're our closest ally. We need to make sure they're secure. Jordan is an ally. We need to make sure they're secure. It's time that we stop these endless wars. It's time that we focus on our friends who will help us. It's time that we bring the troops home. We can't go on like this forever and ever. And it's tragic what happened to James Foley. I might say that President Trump defeated the ISIS, and he's held terrorists accountable, and he killed Soleimani, he killed al-Baghdadi, and those were good things to rid the world of those terrorists.
Senator Shaheen, we know what happened to Mr. Foley, but how do you justify the continued presence of American troops in a region that just doesn't seem to want us there?
Well, I think in Afghanistan, we know why we're there. We're there because we want to ensure that terrorists no longer have a foothold there to attack the United States. That's also the reason we went into Syria and Iraq, so that we can make sure that terrorists can't attack the United States. And we need to continue to work on that. We have thousands of ISIS detainees around the world. We need to ensure that those ISIS detainees go back to the countries that they came from, because there is a hotbed there in Iraq, on the border between Iraq and Syria. I'm proud of the work that I did with the Foley Foundation and the Foley family to bring back to the United States the Beatles, who are accused of being responsible for the murder of James Foley and 3 other Americans. I worked with the National Security Advisor O'Brien and with our military to ensure that they could come back to stand trial in civilian court, so we can hold them accountable and show the rest of the terrorists in the world that they shouldn't mess with the United States.
Next question.